So that's what I'm saying. The text is like an object. It's gonna change perspective based on where you're standing. I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I missed you, baby sweet. It was a day.
It was a day.
Please tell me you're seeing this too.
From Seattle, we're Drinking the Movies. I'm Taylor Baker.
And I'm Michael Clausen. Oh, that is refreshing. I think we're drinking the same beer as last week, correct?
Correct. Why don't you tell us the name 3 times fast?
I cannot. I can try once. Citrus Mistress by which brewery?
It is the Hop Valley Brewery in Eugene, Oregon, and it is an IPA.
Good pick. Good pick.
It still tastes good.
A personal favorite,
One
right?
week later. Yeah. Just this brand. I love their IPAs.
There you go. Good find.
So we're going to do some first impressions. We got the Peanut Butter Falcon up first. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do this.
Come to my wrestling school and become a badass.
That's what he wants to do with the rest of his life.
Yes, it is.
You let a half-naked boy with Down syndrome who has no idea how to get along in this world just slip out from under your nose. You two are close.
We are.
Well, then you'll figure out where he's at and you'll bring him back.
All right, Michael. That is the Peanut Butter Falcon. What do you think?
I think it looks like a very nice movie. Very excited to see Dakota Johnson in it. Love her. I like Shia LaBeouf these days. Ever since American Honey, I've been very pro Shia LaBeouf.
Pre-American Honey, please.
That really cinched it for me, though.
I've been ride or die with him since Even Stevens, man.
Oh, those are. I mean, he peaked early.
Well,
great stuff.
I mean, Charlie St. Cloud, or is it Charlie St. Cloud, or what's that shit called? Charlie Countryman. The Life and Death of Charlie Countryman. Where he legit got high in the movie to act like he was high in the movie.
It's dedication.
Ripping his tooth out in Fury.
Oof.
Getting in fistfights with Brad Pitt and what's that guy that played the Punisher?
I couldn't tell you his name, but I know.
You know who I'm talking about? Yeah. Oh man, this kid's just committed. And you
like
show me an indie movie with him in it? Exactly. I'm thinking American Honey. I'm thinking Life and Death of Charlie Countryman. I'm on board.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I think it looks maybe a little sentimental or a little gooey for my liking, but
I like a little goo every once in a while.
I do. It might kind of fit in that vein of like Hearts Beat Loud, kind of feel good kind of thing. But I like to feel good sometimes.
I think I'm picking up more of like a feel good, bittersweet ending from it though.
Yeah.
Where I think it's gonna feel good the way that, like I said earlier, Swiss Army Man feels good while you're watching it, and then when you get to the end and that reality where they show up at Mary Elizabeth Winstead's house, and there's that fallout of reality coming back.
I actually have not seen Swiss Army Man.
Oh,
but
you haven't?
I kind of have a sense for what's going on there, just having heard enough about it. But,
okay.
Yeah, so I can see it.
Because the way that Dakota Johnson's character is responsible for reality, eventually reality is going to come back in that third act ending.
Right. Did you just stumble upon this one, or did you hear about this one somewhere?
I heard about this, I think, in February. Is that when South by Southwest was?
Oh, got it.
When they were making some noise about this and Shia's personal film that he plays his own father in, that he wrote. You know that movie that I'm talking about? I can't remember.
Yeah, is that one Honey Boy?
Honey Boy.
For a second, I thought that's what this was, so I didn't realize. Yeah, he's got.
Yeah, so that's when I started hearing about this, and then I have a friend who you just saw a movie with in Fabric at South by not South by SIF.
Yep.
And he saw this at SIF and really liked it. So
very nice.
I put it back on my radar.
I like it.
All right, let's get over to Dark Crystal. Age of Resistance.
I see many endings lay before us. Some good, most bad. Tell no one.
All right, we just watched the trailer for The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, a Netflix miniseries or series.
Well, it said original series. I was under the impression it would be a limited series because it is before the film The Dark Crystal.
Only so much
but
time
it
to mind.
is possible that they could do a continuous series, I suppose, for a few seasons.
Yeah. So, I have not seen the feature, Dark Crystal.
I could have sworn we went and saw it together last year as part of that throwback back when MoviePass was still working. In like late June. We did Mononoke together,
We
correct?
did Mononoke.
At the Regal. So that same Regal theater did The Dark Crystal. So I just saw this very recently. Maybe we were going to try to see it and you couldn't. Maybe that's what it was.
That could be. Yeah. Does that one hold a special place in your heart?
Oh, yes. I think it holds a special place in every young boy's heart that sees it before the age of 12. Much like Princess Mononoke does.
Yeah. Well, I could say that I don't know that I'm crazy about this trailer.
So, ooh, I am.
Are you?
Oh, yes.
Maybe just because...
There's no plot.
There's no plot.
There's only symbology. They show a lot of things from the film that make you go, oh, okay, now I get it. And it looks so good, and it's filled with so much action and so little plot that I'm actually quite excited. Because I was worried that something like this might just be like a plot mechanic thing. But it was just like beautiful to look at action. It's like they took the Troll Hunters experience with DreamWorks and Guillermo del Toro. We're like, all right, we're going to level up. We're going to go Jim Henson with this shit.
Yeah, it does look good. But as we were kind of saying during watching it, I can't really tell, like, to what extent some of that is puppetry versus kind of like some that, CG but digitally blend. Doctored. Like, it's like a little bit of both. But I think it looks pretty good.
It had my mouth open the whole time. I was like, I don't get how you could do this, but okay.
Yeah. Maybe I was just mostly concentrated on that, trying to figure out what exactly I was looking at, but I liked it, whatever it was. And, you know, I'm not familiar enough with, like, the narrative of the original, even having not seen it, to know what to expect, but based on the look alone, I think it looks pretty cool.
Yes. It definitely pays dividends if you know the stuff. Like when that astrolabe starts rotating and it's in perfect condition, and it shows the witch, like she's crucial to the plot of the original. Yeah. So maybe if we cover this to any extent, we'll rewatch The Dark Crystal and cover that on the show. Would you?
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's plan to book that in late August or early September.
On air planning.
All right. To the New World.
You're a curious man, Smith. What is it that you're looking for?
I've always believed that something good was in store for me. Destiny all my own.
I'm shy.
Lips.
What is beyond the world?
Did you bring any food?
We must live in peace with these people. Our survival depends upon it. I beg you, let not America go wrong in her first hour.
It's a whole new world.
You want to sing the song for us, just to lead in?
Yeah, because it plays such a big role in the film itself, right?
It does.
So we're talking about Terrence Malick's The New World.
Not the Aladdin.
Written, directed, edited. Do you think that this most benefits from Terrence Malick's writing, his directing, or his editing?
His directing.
Disagree.
So. Interesting. What do you think? His editing?
Editing. As I sat there staring at those cuts, the way that he times those cuts, like if you didn't cut where you cut, it doesn't have the same impact. Like it doesn't like he uses shading to blend in his edits, where he'll have something white center, and then he'll have something white center that does like a cut, so it feels natural even though it's totally different.
Yeah.
Or the way that he'll just he'll shoot the grass in front of the trees or the fence in front of the trees so that you get that same idea, and then he'll cut to the river, the Potomac, right, with the ships on the Potomac.
Oh, right.
And so there's like he just is constantly doing this thing where and we also know that like Trey Edward Schultz did a bunch of shooting for some of his later films. And so in my head, I'm like, well, how many teams did he have shooting this shit? Like, I feel pretty confident that it's not just him shooting, and then his cinematographer, etc.
Yeah, it's definitely like far and away my favorite of his collaborations with Emmanuel Lubezki. Like, that is the thing I like most about Song to Song or Knight of Cups, is this same kind of, fluid motion. But here, paired with this particular narrative, I find it far and away more tantalizing. And I think you said in your review that it's just a nice pairing of classicism, I think is the word you used, in its narrative. Not to just take your words, but it's because they're right, on point, with something more poetic in the style, right?
Yeah. It broke my head when I first saw it, because I mean, you don't really come across things that deserve something like the Pulitzer Prize in film that often. And I think this is like one of those first things where I was in a cinema and I was like, oh, this is like a modern classic. That's one of the first times that I could ever really say that, because when you're a kid, you normally go see like Toy Story or whatever, and as great as that is, it doesn't deserve the fucking Pulitzer Prize of literature. But this is like the first thing where I was like, oh, film can do the thing that all the books that I've read can do, or some of the books that I've read can do.
Yeah. You're immediately kind of keyed into the sense this is doing something with cinematic grammar.
Yeah, that most films don't even do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Where does this stack up relative to your other Maliks?
Good question. I don't know.
Hard to say.
I think that recency bias always betrays someone. So right now I want to say this is on top, but then I think about The Voyage of Time, think about Song to Song, think about Knight of Cups, and those are genius to me. I honestly am neutral on Badlands. It's okay. Like it's not bad, but it's not great to me. Days of Heaven, not great to me.
Oh, that would be the one for me that competes with this.
Whereas this is great to me.
Yeah.
And I think that because Knight of Cups and Song to Song are so silent but so loud, that's why those get there for me. Because you can put a lot into them as an audience member, and those characters can become your subconscious because of your ability to be able to project onto these characters.
Yeah.
And I think that is also something this benefits from, while also having that subtext of the dialogue that you can barely hear. Yeah. There's it's been a little while since I've seen Song to Song or Knight of Cups. I saw both of them that came out, which is just a while ago, but both of them have some narration, right? Yes.
I think they both do.
From the characters themselves.
Yeah. Which I guess I had just kind of forgotten about how consistent that is. I think you get that in Badlands and Days of Heaven. Which, like, lots of movies don't use narration well. He uses it all the time, and it's always pretty good. Yeah,
it's always, it's part of the literature of the film.
Yeah.
It's a contributing factor to understanding the psychosis or the psychology of the narrative.
Yeah.
If there is a narrative to even, that's the thing. Because all his films take place in a world, and his characters are people that want to be in a narrative, but are actually in a world.
Yeah. What are most of the things you're feeling watching this movie? Is it more, is it sadness? Is it joy as you watch John and Pocahontas together? Is it difficult to even say one way or the other? I say it because
it's an ache. It's a longing. I'm a man, so it's something like a paternal longing, where it's like I get that desire that he has, but I also know it's not gonna last. But those moments in the grass with her are just beautiful. It's just, that is, I think we've all had those moments in our lives, or all will have some of those true love, quote unquote, moments in our lives where we just are infatuated. and we hit this peak thing of oxytocin being released in our brain, and perfect timing and carefree thoughts. We're almost in a flow state where there's no other concern besides joy.
Yeah.
And that's what he put on film.
Yeah. It's it was just kind of complicated, I guess, because I kept kind of waiting for it to become like more physical in a way, and they do, certainly touch and like embrace and lay together, but it always felt like as more spiritual in a way than of a physical kind of bond.
Would you say spiritual, or would you say like natural without any of the rutting, perhaps?
That sounds right too.
It is definitely in that existential vein, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, something about how I would just not describe this as... I would describe it as romance, but not less of a sexual kind and more of like a tender kind. It strikes me much more as like... The words coming to mind are like gentleness and tenderness rather than like... I was about to say passion, but it is passionate in a way too, so it's kind of hard. But I just think there's something about the way that like the temperature between them is always... It's never through the roof. I don't know if I'm really articulating that, but it's something about just how never overly sexual or physical it seems to become to me.
Yeah.
That really leads more to a more spiritual kind of connection to me, which is just incredible. What do you think about these performers?
Well, Colin Farrell, one of my favorite English-speaking actors just of all time. I think that what's that movie called? It's this super underrated movie where he's just like a fisherman, and he finds a woman tied up in his nets, and it's like a myth about her being a mermaid. I think it came out like shortly around this time.
Was that Winter's Tale?
That's not Winter's Tale.
That was another kind of fantasy, right? He's had some kind of big bombs. I don't know about this fisherman one, but he's just an interesting career. Anyways, continue.
I'm The Lobster, right?
Yeah.
And then, what's her name? Kilcher. How do you pronounce her first name? It starts with a Q. Is that right?
Yeah, I just said
Kuoriana or something. Kilcher.
Yeah.
She plays Elk Woman in my favorite film of last year. If you recall, Hostiles.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize she was in that.
Yes, and I did not either realize that they were the same until watching this movie, and I was like, I know her. How do I know her? So she did go on to have a career.
Yeah, that's great, because she's great.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Bale, you're usually pretty positive on him.
Love him.
Yeah.
Always love him.
Yeah. But the other faces kind of pop up. Ben Mendelsohn, right?
Early Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah. Interesting just to see those faces because they don't get that much screen time. But they do kind of fill out the cast.
Yes. So what do you think about this pivot from love in the winter? Spring coming. Normally spring is this like beautiful thing. Here, spring springs him back into the fort where men have been eating each other. And he basically becomes entrapped by these walls and his role for this society.
Yeah. That's where it starts to feel just more devastating to me, where that tenderness is just kind of forgotten. He says something like, maybe, I think it was you who quoted it, something like, it felt like a dream and now I'm awake, as he's coming back into the fort after his stint with them. And you just can't help but want that bond to continue to grow, and it just feels like the distance then is suddenly starting to grow. What about you?
Oh yeah, I mean, once Kilcher gets to the point where she says, "You killed the god in me," that's when
that'll do it.
Yeah, I felt that, like, there's just some lines that Malick is capable of with such poetry and the way that he's editing this thing together where it feels like the greatest of literature. And it might be that I'm making that comparison because literature is like the longest art form we have, in some sense, other than like history but I mean, even history has to be documented in a written form. You know, the Bible is a work of literature, the Quran, work of literature. So it seems only natural to pair this with the work of literature, even though it is visual. It's bigger than a movie. It's bigger than a film. It doesn't fit in these previously denoted areas. Like it cannot fit where Anna fits. It cannot be the same thing that Ma is. It is more than that.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, but I was almost thinking kind of the opposite. Like, I think I see what you're saying, but maybe I just say it differently. That like I can't imagine it as anything other than a film.
Oh, it absolutely is a film, but it deserves more accolade than that. Like, it also deserves to be called more.
Yeah.
You know, like, it can't be a film the way that all these other films are films. Like, it can't, like, what's that? Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Slayer, or whatever the fuck. Like, they can't be the same thing.
These can't really both be movies, right?
Yeah, like we can call them the same thing, but, like, there's a deeper thing to them where it's like, this thing needs to be remembered with a more special name attached to it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just because something's a book doesn't mean something's a work of literature.
Yeah.
Is maybe what I mean. So just because something is a movie and a film doesn't mean that it's just that. It's also something more.
Yeah.
And maybe there is a word for that and I just don't know it. Or maybe we need to invent a word for that 100 years into film now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 120.
Go with masterpiece for now?
Yes.
That'll suffice for now.
Do we just call it a criterion? Is that what we call it?
Yeah, I guess. It's got the Criterion edition. So you've seen the extended cut, the theatrical cut. Do you remember like what's been cut out? What is still in?
I think that it's mainly some of the poetic visuals.
Yeah.
And perhaps some of the more viscera part with the violence and the fire. I can't remember if I remember. The thing is, it was 15 years ago it came out, roughly.
Yeah.
And I was very young, so I don't recall. I know that I liked it this much both times.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of note does it end on for you? These are not easy questions.
Honesty. How about you?
It's really complicated. Just because Christian Bale, John Rolfe, is his character, right? And Kilcher, I mean, that has a romance of its own, even as it's, kind of devastating to watch her be torn from her world and die an ocean away from where she was born. Like, these are, like, deeply, deeply sad things, which is just really hard to reconcile with the fact that their relationship is portrayed as lovely in its own way. I don't know. Like, I'm almost scared to say that, but like, in short, John Rolfe is not made out to be a villain or something here, right?
Was he a villain historically?
I don't know, but I guess just the easy way to depict this story would be to really drive home just how awful it would be to be kind of torn from your culture of origin and thrown into this new world. And I don't think it tonally does that.
I don't know. I mean, Malick has his own artistic goals. So this is certainly not a true story.
Right.
But it does have true events. And Pocahontas did die in the UK.
Right.
On that trip. And I don't... Even if it's not true, I think that what Malick is showing us about how the people we fall in passion with, while we can hit those ecstatic heights, it's not sustainable. And as the new year arrives, we can never hold that together, perhaps. And the people that we should truly be with are the ones that want us to be happy, which is what John Ralph represents. He says that I never would have married her, and she never would have married me if we knew that he was alive.
Right.
And then, like, that sincere goodness is what makes her come back to him.
Right.
In England itself.
Yeah.
So I think that I just personally agree with the message, and I don't know about the historical accuracies other than the major events.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, her costume was, like, meticulously perfect, where she's dressed up in that English corset for, like, the painting and stuff. If you actually Google Pocahontas in England, there is that painting that they were doing in the film of her. And that's one of the most, like, legitimate memorials to her that let us see what she looked like.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's the scene where she's brought before the queen, I think, right? And there isn't a lot of exposition around it from what I remember, but like I kind of just assumed it was meant to kind of show, like, look at the relationship we've built with these people, or look at how they have welcomed our culture or embraced our culture, which is not exactly what happened here.
No.
Which is which is obviously just kind of horrifying in its own way, but that you at the same time are seeing her recognize that John Rolfe is good.
Like, you know what else is interesting now that you say that is these two entrenched societies, right? It's England, and then it's Pocahontas's tribe, and they kind of allude to the other tribes, but it's like two monarchical structures. And then this thing in between that's the ocean, and then these two coasts. Because she gets off the ship, and it's just noisy and, like, terrible, right? And then it was essentially, like, noisy and terrible in that fort along the coast. And then there's these two monarchical structures. And as much as we, like, are sympathetic for the natives in this film, they also threw out Pocahontas.
Yeah.
So neither of these structures is innocent. Neither of these coastlines are quote unquote good. And the water in between is debatable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's tricky. It's after she brings them food, right?
Yes.
And he figures that out or learns of it, and he says, "Well, you're out of here."
After she saves their lives.
Yeah. You can't help but side with them in wanting in understanding that her tribe would want them to leave, as they said that they would, right? But at the same time, they're sort of just waiting for them to starve to death.
Well, right, that's the agenda of each of these monarchies.
Yeah,
and then there's like this moment in between of love and sharing that Pocahontas extends to John Smith.
Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, have you ever seen a woman show up in furs looking so beautiful? Like, it's a weird thing that Malick does. Like, he takes conventional beauty and, like, he makes something more beautiful than conventional beauty by going towards, like, this more natural beauty. It's hard to explain, but it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And some of it's, like, not beautiful, like, stuff. Like, it's just, like, a miserably muddy camp where they're starved to the bone. They're, like, freezing to the bone. But I
Hands
never
are
found...
getting eaten off.
Yeah. But I never found this, like, it's just so easy to imagine a movie of this that really rubs that in your face, right? Like, that is so far from what this is doing. That you're still sort of overwhelmed by the poetry of it, even as there's real decay kind of in front of you. Not decay, but,
Or like, say a pot of water on a fireplace in the middle of a fort, and say, like, everyone's huddled around dipping their belts into it and then chewing on their belts. That's what happens.
Not great. Sounds rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
So for you, is this your favorite Malick?
Yeah, I think it is, no doubt, actually. Days of Heaven would be
I
up
want to
there.
say it is no doubt, but every time I watch a Malick movie, in this last 5 years, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite one, no doubt.
Yeah, that can happen.
Like everyone I watch that isn't Tree of Life or Badlands or Days of Thunder. Days of Heaven, sorry.
Yeah, I should say that I still have not seen Tree of Life. I still have not seen The Thin Red Line.
I haven't either. That'd be a good one.
There we go.
If we got a war movie lined up.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this is number one, closely followed by Days of Heaven, and then probably Badlands. You?
Right now, this one, probably Knight of Cups, then Voyage of Time, but I could put Song to Song at second, easy. Voyage of Time is really something if you're interested in a poetic statement about the nature of the universe.
Did you see that one in theaters?
I did not.
That would be cool to see.
No,
it's one I'd love to see.
I don't know if it came.
Pacific Science Center. Oh, that could be. I think the release was pretty limited. Right?
Yeah. And if it did come, I found out about it. Yeah, I think I found out about it after it had done its weekend at the IMAX.
Yeah.
In the Science Center, which was the only place it played in all of Washington, if I remember correctly.
Pretty dope.
Right.
All right. Should we move on?
Let's move on from this beautiful tapestry to a more neurotic piece. Synecdoche, New York.
Death comes faster than you think.
The idea is to do a massive theater piece.
What was this shoot for?
Plays.
Like theater plays? Have I disappointed you somehow?
Everyone is disappointing. The more you know someone.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Knowing that you don't know is the most essential step to knowing, you know?
I think last week I was just realizing this, that I think the highest movie, or between the couple movies we watched, the highest score was a 2. We did a really big swing this week.
Mm-hmm.
From a couple 2s to 3 5s across both of us.
3 5s.
It's a good week.
It's an improvement. It's still not the happiest selection of films we've ever watched.
It's true.
But that's fitting of a show that started with the Gaspar Noé feature.
Yeah, exactly. I assume you gave Synecdoche, New York 5 stars.
Yep.
With a heart.
Nope.
Oh, no heart. Because it's a little bit of a...
To say that I like this movie is absolutely false. To say this is a perfect movie is perhaps an understatement. That does not mean that it makes me feel good. Or that I like it.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Is this a feel-good movie or a feel-bad movie?
This is a feel-bad movie.
Yeah.
Is there a Charlie Kaufman movie that is feel-good? That's...
I don't think, not that I've seen.
There's doctorate dissertations on film theory that can be written about that.
Yeah. For me, it's a feel-bad movie, but one that feels good because it's just so sincere in its feeling. Mm-hmm. And just...
So you've never seen this before? Is that correct?
Okay. That is correct. How many times have you seen this? A couple times?
Third time.
Always been awestruck by it.
Awestruck, exhausted, slightly hateful of Charlie Kaufman, just like as a person.
Yeah.
Just like you were so neurotic and like, you know what's wrong with you. Just go do the work.
Yeah. It is interesting. Like, I think there are dissenting opinions on this one that just say, like, this is just miserable. Like,
it absolutely is miserable.
What is redeeming about this?
It's perfection.
It expresses itself in an invigorating way.
I don't know. It's right. Invigorating means that it replenishes your energy, right? And to me, this is something that is just fucking exhausting. Watching Philip Seymour Hoffman begin to tremble after he hangs up after a conversation doesn't go his way and dial 911 as he's experiencing stress-induced seizures by basically being a baby when the world doesn't go his way.
Yeah.
It just becomes exhaustive.
Yeah. Boy, I haven't watched anything with Philip Seymour Hoffman in a while, but like it is just a reminder of how good he is.
You know, I was thinking about that when I turned it on. I was like, you know, we have a lot of talk about like the greatest living actors, but the way that, you know, Philip Seymour Hoffman is actually good is he's one of the greatest dead actors, and there's a lot of those.
And he lives on in the movies.
He does.
No doubt. Yeah, it makes me realize just like how much I treasure The Master with him and Joaquin Phoenix. I'm like, just like
I need to rewatch that.
Ever. It's so good.
Best duo ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that.
It's up there. But I mean, I really love everybody in this movie. I mean, I think this is really like one of my favorite casts ever.
You said that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I agree, but I understand your sentiment.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're tough feelings to have to watch unfold, but I just think
it's an interesting interrogation of the self. Is what
yeah,
it
very
is, right?
It's very introspective. I think it's
sorry, not Olive, the other one.
Oh,
right, like that.
So funny.
It's just like he decides to care about this one who ran away from him. And then this one that he has, he doesn't care about. His daughters is what I'm talking about. It's just so fucking terrible. But it's so true of people like Kaufman.
Yeah.
That are that type of neurotic and filled with anxiety. And, I mean, like, if he grew up today, he would have, you know, that millennial case of the FOMO. Just unending FOMO.
Yeah. Yeah, and that he is, like, so kind of obsessed with his own death. It was almost like a little, like, super intense Woody Allen to me. Woody Allen is, like, when I think of, like, neurotic auteurs, he's, like, always the first one that comes to mind. Charlie Kaufman is, like,
does
neurotic.
he do anything that, like, Alex Ross Perry doesn't do? Or, you know what I mean? Like, who's the dude that did Wiener Dog again?
Oh, Todd Solondz.
Right, like there's a certain type of neuroses that's, like, more approachable.
Mm.
And this Kaufman neuroses is, like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky movie to, like, summarize broadly in a way because there's so much detail. Like, anything you try to say about it into broad of words, you're probably going to find some exceptions to that rule.
Yeah, I think we should take this conversation and wall it up.
Nice
play it out, wall it up.
One detail, the burning house. What do you make of that? Do you have thoughts?
Yeah.
That's one detail I don't know that I ever really came down on with an interpretation of.
I think that there's a lot of people that we'll meet in our lives where we know they're doing something that is a lie, and we pretend with them that it's going to be fine, but we know it's not going to end well. And that's kind of like buying a house that's on fire with a guy that lives in the basement who you're going to marry and have kids with.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's plenty of those situations that our loved ones will do, and we'll see them do them, but we can't tell them that they're doing it wrong because they have to experience that lesson. It's kind of like a 5-year-old that needs to know what getting burned means before they listen to the fact that that's going to burn you. They have to know what that means first before that warning helps, or that's going to be really cold. Don't get in yet. We need to, or like, don't eat that, you know, like, don't bite into that frozen thing. It's going to break your teeth. It's something like that. And it's just a perfect illustration of, like, we all know that she's in love with Philip Seymour Hoffman, but Philip Seymour Hoffman is philandering around with Michelle Williams.
Yeah. So
while Catherine Keener has left him to go to Berlin with Jennifer Jason Leigh. So she's going to go pretend that this is what she wants to fulfill herself, is to buy a house, right? Because that's what everybody else does.
Yeah.
And it does not fulfill her, and at the end of the movie we see that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one I almost took in, like, maybe too literal of a way. Like, I don't think there's really the textual evidence to back this up anyway. It just came to mind, which is that, like, if this is partly about, like, how preoccupied he is with death, while at the same time being terrified with everything he has to deal with in life. Like what his daughter might turn out to be. That terrifies him.
But only the daughter that left him.
Right. How to, figure out his love life. And then in a way, like, the prospect of buying a house, and the terror that can bring in a financial sense, and that is just going to slowly kill you. You're buying your coffin in a way when you're never going to be able. That's where you're going to live until your death. I like it. It's as morbid as anything else.
But right, that statement isn't true of all people.
True.
And that's where that's maybe why I avoided that, because I was like, what is true of all people? Even people that will buy that house that's on fire will also do their own respective terrible choices that all the people that care about them will know that they're making, but can't tell them that they shouldn't be in that relationship, that they shouldn't take that job, that they should hold out for that opportunity, that they're not ready for that pet, that they're not ready to have that kid. Whatever it is, we all know that they're not ready for this thing.
Yeah. It's very morbid, but I think why it still earns a heart for me is that I think it's also just super funny. I was absolutely laughing during this. You already mentioned one of my favorite quips where he mixes up the names of his two daughters. My other favorite might be him describing the two types of psychosis to his daughter. Just perfect performance.
One
there.
is mommy, and the other one's the one I have on my face.
Yeah, exactly. Jennifer Jason Leigh having an accent after a certain point, and she's super funny. Catherine Keener talking about the dream in which he dies so she can start anew.
What do you think about there's no way to dance around it, the straight up sexual abuse of Olive by Jennifer Jason Leigh at the age of 14?
Oh, it's terrible. Just terrible.
Right?
Yeah, less funny for sure.
But it's weird how when we watch those scenes with her, he's still framed as the insane bad guy by the way that the film is constructed. It's a weird thing where that this we'll get to it in La Ventura as well. The people that are bad are being depicted not bad.
Yeah. Are there people in here that you just plain like?
That I just plain like? Yes. What is her name? She plays Philip Seymour Hoffman's character once what's his name kills himself. And she was originally the cleaning lady.
Oh, Diane Wiest?
Diane Wiest.
Yeah.
Diane Wiest is just straight up joy.
Oh, yeah, that line where he's like, you are weirdly exactly what I pictured for this role. She's like, I am so glad. I am weirdly perfect.
What do you think about the fact that we're watching a movie which is set in a fake world of Synecdoche, New York? And then they discover a playhouse for his play because he won the MacArthur grant to put this play on. And then they set the play up in there. And then it becomes bigger than the city ever was. And they put another one in it.
Yes, I don't know that I can respond without just talking in circles.
Yes.
Except that I can maybe say most of what I think I'm seeing here is just a projection of a certain state of mind. That's how I interpret it, right? Everywhere he looks, he sees himself dying of a sickness or experiencing pain in some way. You keep seeing himself on the TV.
Don't you love when he's writing down all those post-it notes? You just had an abortion.
Oh, yeah.
You just got in a car accident.
It's a whole table full of them, right? Yeah. And he almost kind of says, I think, this verbatim at some point where they're rehearsing and he says we're going to be laying ourselves bare or something like that. And I think that's why this is so enjoyable, even though it's miserable, is that the feeling that someone is opening up themselves to you about all their greatest like fears and anxieties is still very satisfying, right? You just get the sense that you're like that someone out there might feel the same way about however you feel about the world. Not necessarily that I feel quite this cynical about things, but
I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can get there.
It's kind of the openness to it that is just so kind of admirable.
Have you ever seen the film Capote?
I have not seen Capote.
Okay.
Very intrigued by it though.
I think one of the best performances he's ever done is in Capote. And so I wanted to ask you if you'd prefer this or that, and then if you had seen it, do you think that Capote or DiCaprio in Aviator is the most transformative role?
Oh, that's interesting. What would you say?
I don't know.
Tough
That's
call.
why I wanted to ask you. I'd like to revisit all of those films.
Yeah.
I think that they're some of those transformative roles.
Yeah. Yeah, I read the book in Cold Blood, so I've always kind of wanted to watch the movie in Cold Blood and then watch Capote, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But
something to get to when it's slow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Favorite female performer?
Michelle Williams, probably.
It's hard to not pick her every time she's in a film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she does get a lot of screen time, so maybe that makes it a little bit easier.
But not more than I'd say the
assistant, I guess.
The assistant, and then the assistant's stand-in.
It gets a little tricky to find the words.
The second assistant's assistant. I don't know how to.
Yeah, that's when I think I maybe got like most sort of lost in this world, is when up to a certain point I can kind of track like the layers of this thing, but then the layers kind of start to interact with each other, right?
In ways that break the layering,
right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I'm still in this thing, but I'm a little lost in a good way.
Very much like L'Avventura.
Yeah, yeah. You favorite character, favorite or favorite performance?
I mean, female
if you can't
performer,
pick.
right? Because the only
Hoffman.
male performer to pick is Hoffman, but female performer Williams.
Yeah,
but I mean, some of those deliveries from Jennifer Jason Leigh are scrumptious.
Oh yeah, yeah. This would, I mean, far and away be the best ensemble were we to do that list for this year.
Really?
2005, I think. Is this when
best
this
ensemble? I don't know. The nature of the film brings that to question for me. Because I think about Christopher Plummer with everybody else in the New World, and like just how you don't even see them as actors. Like, you don't really think about that queen as the actress who played the queen. You think about the queen.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, those types of things where just the nature of viewing these people as performers already denotes it a little bit in my ensemble looking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, just pure spectacle, like, yeah, there's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah. 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 I was thinking at one point about, like, what I would bundle this with, like, if there's any other movie, you know, if you were to program it in something, what would it be? And I think it would actually be movies we've watched recently, things like All That Jazz, The Souvenir, The House That Jack Built, all these sort of like artistic introspective exercises, or just artists taking themselves as the subject.
Yes.
Looking inward for the material. It is a kind of project that I enjoy.
It is, right? It's just a perfect film. And I don't like it, but I want to because it's so perfect. But it keeps me at arm's length with its negativity and neuroses and just anathema to life.
Want to end on that?
Yeah, let's get to the adventure. You were talking about The Souvenir. Let's talk about the prostitute requesting the souvenir.
That did come to mind, no doubt.
L'Avventura, Michelangelo Antonioni's erotic adventure that travels from the core of human desire to the surface of casual passion, magnificently told against the lavish background of the affluent society of present-day Europe. L'Avventura, unfolding in vividly etched scenes of unprecedented pictorial splendor and sensuality.
L'Avventura. You've seen this once, twice before?
3 times.
3 times? Man, when did you first see this?
Good question. 2010 or 11, I want to say.
Okay. Pretty recently. So you've watched it a number of times in the last decade.
Yeah, it is. It's a film.
That it is. Each time you watched this, just because you felt like you had to come back to it, or if certain things brought you back to it?
First time I watched it, because my friend was like, I have to watch this for college. And I was like, fuck, watching movies for college? Shit, yeah, dude.
Where you go to school?
Let's watch some movies for college. And then it just, I didn't get it, but I loved it. It stuck to my ribs, and I didn't comprehend it. I just didn't know what to do with it, and so I revisited it probably like 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah.
Now, probably 5 years later. So,
has it grown in your estimation, or was it already so high it just stayed right on top?
No, it clarified itself. It's come into focus. It's always been perfect, but now I'm understanding its imperfections are what make it perfect.
The imperfections make it perfect. What do you see are the imperfections?
The characters. The nature of the film. I think that in the beginning there is a moment, about in the first 20 minutes, if I remember correctly, where the lens itself has a small lens flare on the top left corner. And you almost go like, what's that doing there? And then like when an actor walks in front of it, it disappears and then it comes back. You're like, huh, that's like the earliest I think I've ever seen like a flaw in a camera lens that feels artistic but also accidental. And then there's these other moments in this film where there's just like random lines or dots that are on the edges of the lens.
Oh, I don't think I've even seen this.
If you recall near the end when he goes to knock on the door of the museum and no one's there, and then he goes and complains and taps his watch. When he's going up the stairs to the museum, that whole single shot pan where it's shot perfectly and his feet are literally at the bottom of the camera lens, like it's perfect framing. There is something on the right hand side that is just like doing weird shit. Like it's just a line and it does like this weird shit where it just moves and it's just like a line.
Yeah.
And it's just like these imperfections make it feel almost like you're looking at a painting or something. Like there's an extra bit to it that make it feel like its flaws make it real. It's weird.
Yeah, it's with something like so meticulous, sometimes it can, some movies achieve that, but then it somehow feels kind of airless, right? Like it feels overly determined or something like that. Yes. So yeah, I could definitely see how if you see something like that, it suddenly brings reality into it, right? It doesn't just feel like this kind of hermetically sealed thing.
So I imagine you were watching this on your couch and you thought, geez, everybody from the 1960s is dead on. The movie ends, you stood up and you booed as loud as you could, just like everyone at Cannes, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, terrible.
You've heard about this, correct?
I did not, actually. So I thought it was a big hit.
It did win the Grand Jury Prize, but the audience that it, I believe, first screened for booed it.
Oh, did not appreciate it.
No. So that's
I did not know that.
What that was like then.
That's interesting.
Because this is one of those first movies that shifts plot.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes no sense. And so the reason I knew you would love this film is because one of your favorite films of all time is very, very similar in its synopsis. A girl disappears on a hard, rocky surface. Peter Weir's Picnic at Hanging Rock
100%.
clearly took some inspiration, bare minimum, from L'Aventura.
Yeah, Picnic at Hanging Rock absolutely came to mind. And it only sort of deepened my love for Picnic at Hanging Rock because it feels like that movie kind of borrows that idea, but for its completely own purpose. Mm-hmm. Whereas that movie was really, to me, partly about coming of age and adolescence and this transformative moment of going from girlhood to womanhood, and how just sort of unreal that can feel. I mean, that seems like a completely different kind of subject matter.
Oh, 100%. But still, motif-wise...
very similar in its feel.
Yeah.
They go missing and everyone's looking for them. Like,
that's the plot. Or everyone looks for them for a bit.
Right.
In this case.
Yeah.
Because some people have too much money and hate their lives and just are looking for that next bit of feeling.
Yeah. I remember everybody comparing, or not really comparing, but talking about Antonioni after Burning came out for the same reason, that this girl goes missing partway through. There, we have an idea who might be responsible for who.
Yeah,
for
and
why she's
they're
missing.
actually worried about it the whole time.
Right.
And it's not like a sexual film. Burning isn't to the same extent. Like, it is, but it's not the same style. Like, it's not about the emptiness and the futility of life the way that this is.
Oh, that's interesting. That's like exactly what Burning feels like to me to some extent.
I think it does feel like that, but I think that there are some characters that don't believe that in the film.
Oh yeah,
and in this film, the main characters believe, or like they come to understand the futility of life. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely not like a perfect mapping by any means. There's no one quite like Steven Yeun's potential serial killer. Like, it is definitely its own thing. I also thought about Clouds of Sils Maria and Kristen Stewart disappearing at the end of the movie on that hike. That came to mind only because there's one of the Criterion supplements. I didn't watch it, but it's Olivier Assayas talking about it, and I was like, I wonder what, how he's been influenced by Antonioni. And so I kind of wonder, was that maybe an homage?
Yeah, that was part of the Criterion Collection's re-release of it, right?
Yeah.
They did the extra feature with Assayas.
Yeah.
I saw that. I wanted to watch it. I just didn't get to it.
Yeah. And, what was the other movie that was coming to mind? Oh, Columbus. The Kogonada one. Just for how, architecture is like in every shot of that movie.
Yes. Well, that's the interesting thing about L'Aventura is that they use these stone facades, whether it's natural in the volcanic islands or man-made in the nature of the cinematic looking landscape, right? That's literally what they say. Look how cinematic it looks when they're on top with those bells. When they walk in front of it, they feel like they're of a different era than it. Or when they're walking on it, they're different than it. And I think that this film might be that turning point where we start to get that Louis Buñuel style Agnes Varda shift towards Godard, even this shift in cinema where the narrative structure takes a backseat to the auteur or the characters in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's like the form itself is telling the story more so than like the script.
Yes.
Right? It feels like a director's medium rather than a screenwriter's medium.
And it feels like you could almost take any of the shots and put it in print it out, put it in a frame, make it large, and hang it, and it's just art.
And just stare at it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like any of them, though.
Yeah, like, and it'll tell you something about those
like
characters.
that man who rows back to his single house on the island when he's pointing at like, this is this person, this is this person, this is like, dude, you print that out, you put that on your wall, that looks like art. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would love to know if it was a little funny to people at the time at all, or if this is only a distance thing. When we're on the island and we're kind of getting to know the different couples, the one guy who just is routinely shutting down his wife when she's like, oh yeah, beautiful weather, huh? He's like, I can see the weather, Julia. That did give me some laughs.
And then later she says, like, he's been mean to me all day. It's a certain turn of phrase in the translation that's like, oh, that's exactly it. You know.
Yeah.
And then geez, what's her name? They go to see the young painter, and then she's acting all mad at Julia.
Oh, right.
Even though she's doing even worse, ostensibly, because Anna is missing.
Yeah.
And she's now with the fiance. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like these people, they're filling parts. Like, to me, this and Synecdoche are very similar. Because it's like, these people are so self-absorbed that it's just these people fill parts in their lives. They're not actual relationships. They're just placeholders for people filling in a role. Not like actual people relationship. But there's nothing interpersonal about these people. Yeah.
They definitely share a despair.
Yeah, and that's like exactly what those tears are about at the end for me. Like, like both of them are just empty as fuck inside.
Yeah. It seems to have a skepticism of religion to me when Monica Vitti's tapping on the blinds of the church and it says it's empty. Why is it empty? And the camera's panning back as they leave. That sign is just this big empty church, encompassing the whole frame.
I think I agree, but I also think that it might be bigger than that.
I definitely believe that.
Like a critique of that. What is that? That shit. It starts with Neo. I don't remember which Neo it is, but there's maybe Neo Modern. It's hard. Jeez, I wish that I remembered that term. But because they criticized the museum for not being open. And then the townspeople had chased the last tourists out of the town for wearing strunks.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Yeah. And then, like, the nun had never been up there.
Oh, right.
Right. So there's like all these weird little things to this place where it's
that was
like
interesting.
The way that they experience the world is like this anti way of experiencing the world. And then these people who are going and seeing these spots in the world are terrible people. So it's like, if terrible people go to see these spots and then the people in the town don't, like, where are the good people? And then, like, when she's alone standing outside in that square and all the men are just lambasting her. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. This movie is just so rich.
Yeah, when they're on the island and the missing girl's father shows up and has found, like, her Bible or something like that and says, like, oh, she, was still religious. Somebody religious couldn't possibly have committed suicide, right? And I don't think Monica Vitti even responds. She just walks away. And it's just in that movement that it's like, do you really think that's the case? And that's maybe where more of that skepticism came in for me. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, just shot after shot. I just think there's meaning in every image here. It's just great.
So the hardest question of this episode, of 3 films that get perfect 5s from both of us, which film is your favorite?
It's really hard.
The 2 that you don't pick are permanently destroyed.
Well, I can start by saying I don't think it is Synecdoche, New York. I think that would be number 3. That one, the only thing that's really missing there, I think, is something about, like, its visual power, right? I mean, these are just astounding looking films, The New World and La Ventura. So I'm going to eliminate that one, and I'm going to kick it back to you to eliminate one.
Oh, I'll eliminate Synecdoche all day.
There you go. Damn it, so now it's my turn again? It's really, really hard.
Right?
Very, very difficult.
Because based on our experience, it seems like the New World unlocks this third phase of Malik that gave us Song to Song, that gave us Knight of Cups, that gives us Voyage of Time. All three of those films are very similarly edited and similarly narrated, right? And then it's like, okay, so if we get rid of the New World, we might get rid of this new motif of Malik that made him release 3 movies in like a year and a half, even though they were all done at one point in time. Like, they were all done at once and unreleased.
Yeah.
At one point in time.
Yeah.
So you miss out on those. But if you get rid of L'Avventura, you get rid of the stylings of, most recently, Roma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Like you literally see a license plate that says Roma that looks like a shot from Cuarón's Roma in L'Avventura. Like, it's obvious.
Yeah. I think I would go with L'Avventura, but it is painful to say. And I think together they nicely showed like just what the camera can do, whereas I think like the New World really shows like the power of moving the frame, right? That is all about the camera moving.
But it's also about where you time those cuts.
That too, and
with
that is
that movement that's coming
editing
in,
is
so
like that is a uniquely cinematic thing.
Yeah, that swirl that he has is just
Whereas the camera moves in La Notte, but it's much more about like static composition and movement within the frame.
And that's a film I need to see. She's in that, correct?
Oh wait, what did I say? Did I say La Notte?
Yeah,
I meant to say L'Avventura. Same thing of La Notte. La Notte. But yeah, I think
it's
I would
more
go with
static and
L'Avventura. What about you?
It's emotionally the New World is my preferred. Film classicism, though, like thinking about like what you lose if you get rid of L'Avventura. So I have to pick L'Avventura because without L'Avventura, how much do you miss out on? Like, if this is the birth, quote unquote, of handheld cinema at the Cannes Film Festival, and then you get to Sex, Lies, and Videotape with Soderbergh in '89, winning that award at Cannes as well, then it's like, well, shit, I gotta go with L'Avventura because that changed the game. And you gotta go with the thing that changed the game and influenced cinema the most.
Yeah, so...
Because I love cinema, so I want the best version of it, even though I love all 4 of those movies that are tied together with The New World, Voyage of Time, Song to Song, and Knight of Cups.
But it sounds like if you were walking into a movie theater, one was playing on one screen, one on another, and you could never watch the two again, you would maybe pick The New World in that case? Why do we do this to ourselves?
It depends on the day. It depends on the day. Oh, man. Imagine not walking into L'Avventura.
I know.
That's the thing. Like, I can't imagine not walking into L'Avventura. Where I imagine me being like, it's 11:30 on a Monday night. I'm not going to go sit for 3 hours and watch The New World. Whereas it's like, yeah, I could do like 2 hours for L'Avventura at 2 a.m., sure.
Yeah, this is where Synecdoche comes in, because I might just start looking like Philip Seymour Hoffman in between the two theaters and not watch either, because I can't decide. And someone's like, figure it out! Yeah, good decisions to have to make.
Right.
It's a good week.
Favorite creator? Antonioni, Malik, Kaufman.
Antonioni. That I can say quite confidently. You?
Malik?
Yeah.
But I need more Antonioni.
There you go.
It's an unqualified statement. I think I've only seen 2 Antonionis, so. Whereas I've seen 5 Maliks? Tree of Life? No, 6.
A little more data there.
Yeah.
It's a smart choice.
That is it for this episode. Any parting shots?
This very positive episode.
This very positive. We will never get this positive again, so long as we live.
Enjoy it.
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
We have to go.
I'm coming with you.
That was brilliant.
You're the best and we love you!
You know what that means.
Another one in the can!